You're listening to Captain John Doe, real aviation stories told anonymously. Let's get into it. Hi. Welcome back to the Captain John Doe podcast. I'm Mindy.
And I am Kevin.
We're back on episode 11, which sounds like not a lot, but we've been out for 2.5 months now. And this is so much fun, guys. And a lot because of you all writing in your stories. We were prepping for the next 2 episodes. I was upstairs and I heard Kevin downstairs on his computer nonstop giggling. And giggling is the perfect word for it. And I yelled down, "What are you giggling at?" He was cracking up on the couch by himself, reading one of the stories that you guys are going to hear on an upcoming episode.
Yeah, I just think that now that have 11 episodes out, that you guys are just like understanding the assignment.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting it. And
we want to hear now.
I can't not laugh at this stuff. It's amazing. Like, this podcast is just like, it's so easy for Mindy and I to just keep doing it because these submissions keep getting better and better. Who knows if any of them are real or not? Whatever. You guys are wordsmiths, like good writers. I'm not having to do anything to it. I'm just reading it and cracking up.
Right. Sometimes on our social media accounts, there's people that are commenting saying, "This is a fake story." I'm like, maybe it is. I don't care, but it's hilarious. Like, there's no way for me to fact check it.
We're not trying to fact check it.
Like, one of our previous stories, if you guys were listening in, was about someone landing on a closed runway. And someone commented, which was really silly to me, saying, "There's no way this story's real because the NOTAM would say that the runway's closed." I'm like, okay, you think every single pilot checks NOTAMs before they fly? Yes, it's a requirement.
FAA just entered the chat.
But do you really think that no one's ever made the mistake of taking off, not checking NOTAMs? And oh, by the way, that story was before cell phones. And so I'm just like, that's a silly reason to think it's fake, because that story felt quite real to me.
I love it that it's getting a reaction out of people.
So funny.
Like, a lot of these stories are getting reactions.
So we're going to catch you guys up a little. On the last episode, we talked about how Kevin had a freshly shaven face. That is come and gone, back with the beard.
It comes back with vengeance. So I worked really, really hard the first half of the month because we went down to Florida to watch my brother and now sister-in-law get married down in Naples, Florida. So shout out to Mitch and Christina. Hopefully you guys are listening. And then at the end of that trip, Mindy and I drove up to Orlando and I attended LPA, which is the Latino Pilots Association Aviation Conference. You know what that is, for those of you who don't know, is pretty much a career fair for pilots. There's about 7 of them in a year that are different organizations. So there's LPA, NGPA, Women's in Aviation, RTAG, OBAC, like so on and so forth. I don't know all of them, but since we were in Florida, decided to take a couple extra days off from instructing and attend the event. This is my first time ever going, and boy, oh boy, did I kind of get slapped in the face if I don't say so myself. I think a lot of people listening to this are in the same situation with me. So I'm sitting around 1,000 hours right now. And what that means after attending this event is I am nothing yet. And I understand that, but it just like, it hits you hard. You know, I spent money, took time off to go to this event, and just to be told, like, come back later, even though I knew that was the answer, just to hear it was tough. Like, to be honest, like, it was a little bit tough. Like, I know that it's a great place to network, great place to see the recruiters, but to come out of it basically the same way I started was, you know, disappointing reality.
Yeah, it seemed like the recruiters weren't very encouraging. It seemed like a couple of the companies jazzed you up a little and gave you encouragement, especially when they had pilots there. From what I took from what you said, I wasn't there, but for the booths that only had straight up recruiters and no pilots, they seemed like they were very transactional and not very inspiring to be like, you're almost there, you got it. Like, stay in touch. When you're at 1,500, give us a call. They're just like, you don't have 1,500 and your CPT done? Get out of here.
Yeah, so like obviously I was trying to come up with my elevator pitch. You know, we're pilots. We all have time. We all have the same amount of time. So what makes you special? Like, that's what you should be thinking. For me, I was an air traffic controller. And I thought, based on interacting with everybody who listens to this podcast, that's pretty cool. And you know who didn't think it was that cool is the recruiters. And it was like eye-opening. Like, okay, I need to do better.
I'll cut you off. I bet that they would think it's cool if they read it. You told me, this is again hearsay, that you hand them the resume and they scan to see your hours. They don't even look at who you are, where you are, what your background is. They don't even look. They're just looking at your hours.
That's a good point too. For those of you that are trying to make a resume, your hours better be at the top. It's the only thing that the recruiters, and I'm not calling them out specifically, but they're the ones that are the gatekeepers. And they didn't look at one thing past my hours. And at the time, like I said, I have 1,000 hours. So I don't meet minimums. There's a giant hiring pool. And I wasn't looking for a job offer. I was looking for more like, I don't even want to say encouragement, but like, okay, you need to get X amount of multi-time. You need to get X amount of dual given. This is what you should do. You should apply now. Don't apply now. Things like that. Now, on the flip side, what Mindy said is the companies that were encouraging were the main lines. So that should be like exciting.
Yeah.
Because like United had a huge presence. They were excited. American, Delta, Southwest.
Who had all the captains there and was really efficient with everyone?
United and Southwest were filled with captains there. And Delta had a good amount too, but Delta had more like private meet and greets. But all the main lines were very, very excited because they're hiring again.
Yeah.
They haven't hired in a year. So you had one end of the spectrum with the main lines, just ecstatic, and people were excited. And then you had the regionals, which is where I'm trying to go. And they had the doom and gloom mentality. And it was very odd to witness it because like I'm very confused as a newcomer to this industry where I understand the hiring market is tough. But if you're telling me that the big guys are hiring, shouldn't the little guys be hiring too? But like, I guess the trickle down effect just takes some time. So it was an experience to say the least.
So let's quickly hit on how you prepped to go to LPA. So we talked about you shaving. Why did you have to shave?
Because I'm a caveman. Because you have to dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
So was everyone there clean shaven?
Everybody there was clean shaven, minus the mustache that is tolerable for most airlines.
Yeah. So if you guys didn't know, at airline jobs, you have to be clean shaven. You're not allowed to have a beard.
Yeah, 121 jobs, I guess we can be specific. And then, you know, NetJets and what's that other 135?
FlexJet?
FlexJet. So FlexJet was there as well. And they have the same policy as well.
Right. Again, it's just kind of crazy that you had to like shave your face to go to a conference to just talk to recruiters. But I get it. Like you have to look the part. But something our friends who help guide your ship in the airline world, because they both work for American Airlines. Shout out to Kayla and Kyle. We were picking out suits for you to go to LPA, and you have a fire brown suit. Oh, another shout out. Our friend Derek picked it out for you.
Yes. Thank you, Derek.
And it's an amazing suit, your newest suit. And you had showed Kayla it when she was visiting us here in Vegas, said, this is what I'm going to wear to LPA. Immediately, she was like, absolutely not. You have to wear a black or dark navy suit. And I was so confused. I'm like, why can't he wear the tan suit? And she's like, you have to show, because like at this job at American Airlines or any of these other 121s, you're all in uniform. And so you should be comfortable showing up wearing what everybody else is wearing and conform to the same image and look like the airline pilot walking in. And she worked in recruiting. So we were like, okay, let's listen to what she has to say. So you wore a black suit. which I think was the right advice. However, it opened up my eyes to myself because I met that with so much pushback, because so many times people always ask me, why didn't you go to the airlines? And I love business aviation. I love sales. I love GA. So like, that's the main reason. But that really sold it for me, because when she said, you have to wear what everybody else is wearing, you have to wear a black suit, my mind immediately went to, well, if I was going, I would wear a white suit or a pink suit or something. Like, there's no way I would wear what everybody else is wearing. And I don't mean that from like a girl's wardrobe perspective. I mean that as like, I never like to conform to how everybody else looks and what they do. And I was like, well, that just sold it for me that I am not an airline girly, because I would never want to just be one in the mix. That's just not my personality.
And sure enough, every attendee, didn't matter if they were a girl or a boy, was wearing that black jacket or navy jacket. Period. Yeah. That was it.
Well, overall, I don't know. I feel like you got back from the LPA event, and I was so excited to see you, to hear about all your experiences meeting with the recruiters that day. And I'm not going to lie, you came home pretty deflated, like not encouraged. So I don't know what that means. So I don't know if you guys are going through the same thing that we are. We're in a transition phase of life, of Kevin going through this career change, and it's just as hard for us. And we have connections and so many resources and support that we're so grateful for, and it's still hard.
That's the thing. Like I'm in all these groups, and everybody says network. And guess what, guys? Our network is large, and I owe that to my wife, for sure, to Mindy. Our network is large, but for the 121 role, it's hard, man. It's hard, and that's the path I'm picking. Like, I think if I chose to go into the GA environment, you know, like I said, I'm passing 1,000 hours so I can be hireable, and with the connections we have, there's a possibility, but I'm committing to go to the 121, and those connections don't really.
Well, the rules are rules in 121. In 135 and 91, there's so much more flexibility on the who you know part, can get you in the door, and they can be flexible on the insurance minimums and work with us. But 121, like, it's not
I don't know any recruiters.
My connections in 121, which are very small, can't be like, oh yeah, we love Kevin so much, so we can hire him at 1,000 hours instead of 1,500. Like, correct. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm going to share something on a later podcast that connections helped out a huge amount with a 121, but rules are rules. Like Mindy said, there's no amount of connections. But at the same token, I think the biggest takeaway is going to these events and having the recruiter look me in the eye, even for 30 seconds, is a big deal, because they took my resume, they put it in the envelope with the 3,000 other people that were there. There was 3,000 people there, and it was a 8-hour event. Like, good for LPA for getting that type of
show out. Well,
people, like, it's insane. That was insane. The event was insane. Like, I saw already they posted that they're gonna have a 2-day event next year.
Smart.
Much needed. Anyways,
well, let's do a little bit of housekeeping really quickly. We kind of softly announced it last time, but let's just go ahead and firm it up that we are going to have our very first live Captain John Doe showing at NBAA base here in our backyard.
Crazy.
Las Vegas.
Crazy.
They graciously sent the invite to us, said that they were fans of the show and would love to have us do a live taping at the conference. Me and Kevin immediately were like, yes, but we are shitting ourselves.
Yeah, we're on episode 11, and you're telling me we're going to do a live show at the biggest business aviation conference?
Actually terrifying, but we're going to put our big boy and big girl pants on and do it.
We talked about it. We're like, who cares if anyone shows up? Who cares?
Not even that. It's just I'm used to us doing this in the comfort of our own little home studio, and whatever. It's going to be great. So if you guys are coming to NBA A-Base, please come to our live show. It's going to be on Wednesday, October 15th at 10 a.m. in the brand new Creator Studio, which is hosted by Signature Aviation. It's going to be at the Las Vegas Conference Center. Right when you walk in the atrium, there's going to be this beautiful Creator Studio with a stage. So we will be there on the Wednesday at 10 a.m. And we're going to do what we normally do. We're going to share some obnoxious, bizarre, silly stories, lighten the mood at this business conference a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see how the mood changes with our little stories.
I know. When they asked us to do it, I was like,
do you know what this podcast is?
do you guys know what the podcast is? Because a lot of people know me, especially in the business space, as being very professional and polished. And this is just a little different. It's not totally crazy, obviously, but I mean, we talk about poop a lot. Like a lot.
A lot. There's probably going to be some more poop stories coming up in later episodes.
Right. So anyways, I'm like, how about you guys just listen? And they're like, no, we've listened. We love it.
We're good. We're good.
So amazing. As always, we are always going to ask you guys to submit your anonymous stories to CaptainJohnDoe.com. It doesn't even have to put your name on it. We don't see an email. It's totally under the radar. Because of the live show, we are requesting any stories you have about business aviation, including charter flying, charter passengers, aircraft sales, anything to do in business aviation, private jets, and then a special emphasis as well on any FBO stories you have. Because the space is hosted by Signature Aviation, we'd love to have a little FBO spin on it. So if you could submit your stories as usual, we're going to pick the top 3 or 4 to share live. And we're working on the details on how to record it when we're there. That way, if you're not able to attend, you can still hear how the live show went. So hopefully that will be a future episode. We're working on it. So make sure you subscribe, leave a review and a rating as always, because that really, really helps us. Please.
All right. Let's get into it. What do you got for us, man?
Am I up first?
I think you're up first.
I can be.
Why don't you go up first?
Speaking of subscribing and being fans, and we're so happy to have you. If you watch my YouTube channel, Mindy channel, you may have heard this story, but we had some follow-up thoughts. So we are going to reshare this story that was in a YouTube video. This is a listener submitted story from a Captain Jane Doe. In 2019, I bought a 1967 Cessna 150 and was still a student pilot at the time this happened. In summer of 2020, I had dropped the plane off to have a new alternator installed. The maintenance guy was telling me that they were having trouble getting it to fit, blah, blah, blah. I'm still a student and new to aviation, so I'm like, they know what they're doing. I'm sure it'll be fine. Even though I'm a student at this point, I had soloed. I had done my cross countries. I had my endorsement to fly to this airport and pick up my plane and fly it back to my home airport. They finally call me and say it's ready and all's good. My husband drives me to the airport and I fly it back solo. It's about a 15-minute flight. I take off, fly her home, and land uneventfully. Tuck in the hangar, and next time I fly, it'll be with my instructor a few days later. I get to the airport, pre-flight, and notice a very tiny single drop of oil by the nose wheel. I checked the oil prior to this, and it's got 6 quarts, which is too much in my mind, so I'm like, it's just spitting it out. Plus, when I checked inside the cowling, it was clean, no issues. I think nothing of it. I don't even mention it to my CFI. I have a concrete pad that's white, but if I was on a blacktop, I don't think I would have even been able to notice this small drop of oil. We go up, practice all the maneuvers for my PPL, come back and do engine outs to finish, taxi back to the hangar. I open my door and look down, and I'm like, did we go through a puddle? The main on my sides are really dirty. I hop out, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The entire plane, from cowling to rudder, is covered in oil, dripping everywhere. We get it back in the hangar. I regret this now. I should have cleaned it first, as now I have an ever-present, very large, Cessna-sized oil mark on my otherwise clean white concrete pad. I'm like, I have to check the oil. I knew it would be hot AF, but I had to know immediately how much oil was left. There was zero oil left, bone dry. My instructor was standing behind me, eagerly awaiting the results as well. I showed him the dipstick. We looked at each other, eyebrows raised in disbelief. He said, "Wow, your engine outs almost became a real engine out. I'm not telling my wife about this one." So I learned a valuable lesson that day. If something seems off, don't ignore it. In case you're wondering what happened, the little gasket on the alternator wasn't put on properly and it got chewed up during the flight. Remember when I said they were having a problem getting it to fit? Well, that was the issue, and apparently they didn't get it to fit. So now after any maintenance, I fly high and close to an airport for a while before I go anywhere. I probably flew 2 hours with this problem unfolding without me noticing. Let's not talk about neither of us noticing if the oil pressure or temperature was a problem during that flight. I was too busy doing maneuvers. But this also taught me that no matter who I'm flying with, don't expect anyone to be paying attention to the airplane's gauges. Anyway, if this doesn't make the podcast, I hope you enjoyed the story, which it did make the podcast and our YouTube channel, so thank you for submitting.
Oh, how did it not die? How are they, like, I'm just so confused at, this story. So she's kind of insinuating that they weren't looking at the gauges. Whatever, we'll move past that. But, like, how did the engine not die? Like, it's crazy. Like, did they land and then the gasket blew off? Like, when did it actually happen? Because it seems like she doesn't know when it actually happened. But when they landed, there was no oil left.
Yeah, that's really scary to get out and see it like that. I mean, obviously that ended very well.
Very well.
But the takeaway is the most important part. And that's why I wanted to share the story, which was after any maintenance to fly high and close to airports. But what she noted, I think, was really important, that it took about 2 hours for that to all unfold. So I think most people do a post-maintenance flight that consists of 30 to 45 minutes. Everything looks good. I'm great.
You hear the mechanic say, get the engine oil hot, right?
She did it. She flew it for 30 to 45 minutes to get it home, and everything was perfectly fine. And going on the next flight, she checked the oil. It was fine. There was only one singular drop of oil on the ground, which is totally normal, especially for a plane that was made in the 60s or 70s, whenever she said. So the point is, it takes a couple hours sometimes for these problems to show their face.
Do you have a story about that?
We have a story about that.
It sounds very familiar, but it's more electrical driven than engine driven.
Yeah, well, I'll keep this as short as possible, but it's also on our YouTube channel.
It's a great watch.
Yeah, it's called Electrical Failure or something on my YouTube channel.
Not clickbaity, by the way.
No, and we had it on video because we were videoing for this trip. And yeah, I got it all on video. But the short of it is that we had dropped off Mojo, our Cessna 182, into maintenance prior to a big trip. We were going to go up to the Carolinas, spend a few days with some friends, and then head out to Kentucky to do the Bourbon Trail for my birthday, and then come back home. So we had a very long trip planned with it, starting in Florida. So like a week-ish before, we take it to an oil change. And the intention was to pick it up, fly it a little bit locally, and then go on the trip, because I've been selling airplanes for 10 years now, and I know that you need to do post-maintenance flights through experience. So I go to pick it up like 2 or 3 days before our trip started, and I go to crank the plane up out of oil change, and it doesn't start. Nothing happens. I'm like turning it over, nothing, nada. So like, oh crap. So I go back to the shop. Well, I'm still at the shop, couldn't move. And the starter had failed. So they're like, this is an easy fix, but it's going to take a day or two. Like, well, that's right when our trip is starting. So now that just took away my 2 to 3 days of flying locally, went to 0. So they changed the starter on it, which meant that when we picked up the plane from maintenance, we went straight on this big trip, because we didn't have time like we planned on. So we take off and we fly our first leg, and it was fine, totally fine. And that was maybe like an hour and a half flight or so, just flying northbound. We take off on our second leg, which has us landing in the Carolinas, and we're in some like IMC-ish It's like really hazy from a bunch of smoke that was coming down from Canada. And the plane panel started glitching. So everything was on autopilot. We're just cruising, chilling. The whole panel goes black and then comes back alive in a millisecond. Like if you would have blinked, you would have missed it. And then it did it again. So then we immediately told air traffic control that we wanted to descend because if we got lower, we were much more visual. So I was like, I don't know what's going on with it. Everything's still fine, but let's get lower. That way we're visual. And then it did it again, but it did it a much longer turn off where the autopilot kicked off. And that's when it kind of scared us.
And noise canceling on the headsets kicked off.
Well, yeah, because we have the plugins for our Bose. So whenever the plane's electrical just like went off.
It felt like the engine blew up because the autopilot kicked off, noise canceling kicked off, and it was
suddenly
a lot. Like, it was terrifying.
Suddenly it was really loud because our headsets weren't working during the
pitched up aggressively.
The plane was out of control ish. Like it was just like wow, what just happened? So it really freaked us out. So we were heading up to what's it called?
Rock Hill,
South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rock Hill, South Carolina. And we're pretty close at this point, maybe like 20 minutes out. And so told air traffic control, hey, we're having some electrical issues, not declaring anything because like right now it's fine. But if you lose us on the radio, we're going to continue and land at Rock Hill. Just FYI. And they're like, okay, great, thanks.
Let me stop you real quick. So before you did that, you found a little hole in the haze and the clouds and you got through it. So we were VFR.
Totally VFR.
Totally VFR at this point. And we knew we were going to potentially have to do some maneuvering. So like Mindy was on top of this. Like,
yeah, I was ready for everything to go black. And I was like, I know where I'm going. I can see where I'm going.
She said everything she needed to do to ATC. They knew we were going to Rock Hill. They knew that we potentially weren't going to have comms. Rock Hill's in the Bravo. Well, it's under the Bravo, but like getting there. So it was great because ATC pretty much gave us a blanket, like, go.
Yeah.
You know, do what you need to do.
So anyways, we land uneventfully. But I'm freaked out because now the panel's glitched several times, autopilot kick, that whole thing. So we find a mechanic on the field to do a look over the plane. Like, can you check the wiring? Like, it seems like something's loose. Like, we don't know what's going on. And so we have him look over the plane, pulls it all apart. Everything looks great. Puts it back together. I'm like, that doesn't make me feel any better. It's like, it's really annoying when you know something's wrong and you can't figure out what it is. Because I'm like, now this next flight, I'm going to be so stressed. So anyway, we did the right thing. We had a mechanic look all a little bit over, but we got in the plane after a couple of days to go take off to Kentucky. And we had briefed it because we knew something was up with the plane. But like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So we briefed, we made a different route because the route was going to take us over a lot of like more sparsely area of mountains. So we pretty much had a route of airport to airport. That way we'd climb up, be at good altitude, and always be in range of an airport going. I wasn't really worried about the engine. I was just worried about we need to get on the ground quickly if something happens. So we redid our route, which is going to take even longer to get Kentucky, but whatever. I think it was your leg to fly, Kevin, your leg. But we decided that I would sit left seat and I would fly the leg because I had a lot more experience. And
I was just a private pilot at the time.
Yeah. So we brief it and set full power on the runway. And right at liftoff speed, everything goes black.
Black. Like.
It doesn't come back on.
Black. Boom. Done. And we were at 55 knots.
Yeah.
And it was crazy how quick you solved that problem. In hindsight, now knowing what happened, like what she did is incredible. We were at rotate speed. She aborted the takeoff. In the abort, hit the next taxiway, shut the plane off. We rolled off of the movement area.
I got to call you out here for a second.
And we're not going to.
I got to call you out.
Go.
So I abort the takeoff. That was my second aborted takeoff, actually.
This is like,
but that was my
rotate.
First surprise at rotate. Yeah, I guess I could say this is my first real aborted takeoff. all the training kicked in. What's funny is just a couple of days before, I was just at flight safety doing my 525 type rating recurrent.
Very proficient in the matter of you lose something. And we didn't lose the engine, but we lost everything but the engine.
Yeah. So quick abort. I get off the very next taxiway and I look at Kevin. I say, I smell something burning. He goes, I don't smell anything. I'm like, I smell something burning. And you were just like, nah, it's fine. And I got off into the ramp and wasn't even at a parking spot. And I'm like, I'm shutting it down. Like, shut it all down, got out. And I look at him and like, I couldn't really smell it anymore. So I'm like, maybe I'm crazy. But obviously, like, that's a possibility. The panel never came back alive. Everything was totally black. So we get out and I'm like, I swear I smelled something burning. He's like, I never smelled it. I'm like, okay, gaslighter.
I don't smell very well, so you shouldn't have believed me anyway.
Yeah. Then we get a mechanic. They look it all over. Everything looks great. Everything's fine. We're like, but it's not fine. We can't freaking turn on our panel.
Until what? They said everything's fine until what? Then they went and looked at the battery. So that's when we started figuring out way more stuff.
Yeah, the battery, we had an old style battery. It had bubbled over.
The acid boiled over.
And the battery in our plane is in the back behind our baggage. So if you open up our baggage door, there's a wall that goes like to the tail. Behind that wall is our battery.
So the acid in the battery boiled over. And when it boiled over, it maybe caught fire. I don't really know, to the main power wire, and it fried the main power wire completely.
So we get a new battery, new power wire.
Somehow we got a new battery. I know we're going quick on this story, but like Rock Hill is in the middle of nowhere. It's like to get these parts was incredible. There was
Saturday.
Nothing there. And somehow there's a flight school that had a Concorde battery that fit the 182.
Yes.
And he sold it to us for cost.
We needed the new style battery anyway.
So we'll keep this moving. We got the battery replaced. We got the main power wire replaced by this awesome mechanic who was generous to give us his time. And then we started up.
I do a high speed, like just test run down the runway. Black.
Done. What the heck? This is like insane. How can we not figure this out? Once again, middle of nowhere, Rock Hill, South Carolina.
He finally quits on us, the mechanic. He's like, listen, lady, this is all I'm capable of doing. Not an avionics guy. Don't know what's going on, but this is where we're at. So we finally find another guy that was referred to us, and he found out that, remember that starter that we had exchanged?
The starter solenoid. Our original starter solenoid was from a John Deere tractor because Mojo was built in 1957. But they replaced with a current starter solenoid that is FAA approved. And what ended up happening is they put the solenoid on the same way the John Deere tractor was.
Upside down.
Which was backwards.
Yeah.
And the solenoid arced with the firewall. And it took 2.5 hours of flying for that rubber piece to burn through and to catch on fire. And that's what happened. It caught on fire.
Moral of the story is trust your wife. And I smelled a fire, and there was an actual fire in the tail and in the nose.
So this little part from our mechanic, our personal mechanic, putting this part on backwards caused our battery to boil over, caused our main power wire to completely fry, caused the starter solenoid to fry. And then this was very recently after we got new avionics. So like that was like
the fact that those didn't fry our very expensive panel.
I think it's only because you took care of the problem so quick before a fire literally could start.
Last thing on this, and we're going to move on. We have talked a lot about how lucky we are that this happened on takeoff, because we have racked our brains a lot on the what ifs. What if that hit its fire moment when we were in cruise over the mountains just 45 minutes later on the flight to Kentucky, where there wouldn't have been as many options. Doesn't even matter if you're over an airport at that point. If you're at 7,000 feet on fire, you're too high. So we think about it a lot, that we could have been in a really bad situation, and how lucky we are that happened on takeoff, and for us to be safely on the ground. instead of that happening in the air. Because if that would have been on fire much longer, what would we have done? There's not a lot of options when you're on fire and you're not on the ground.
No. So takeaway is 30-minute maintenance check is not conservative enough.
So that showed itself for us when we were maybe 3 hours in.
It was about 2.5, 3 hours.
Obviously, you can't fly maintenance for 3.5 hours. I get it. I still don't do it.
It's crazy.
But I would say just to be extra cautious for your first 3 to 5 hours outside of maintenance. I know that's really generous, cautious a time frame. But just like be super spidey aware of what's going on. So do a local flight for your first hour-ish. Stay high and close to an airport. And then when you're going to go beyond that, I highly suggest just being so hyper aware. Don't stress yourself out, freak yourself out, because that's not going to help anything. But just be super aware that something might be about to show itself in the next couple hours.
My last little tidbit of advice is no matter what, always check the oil, always check the fuel, and always make sure somebody sumped the fuel. Always, no matter what. Like, those are 3 takeaways that I hold every day. You know, as I get more experience in students that are commercial pilots, I will, no matter what, check the dipstick, check the fuel, make sure I saw them sump.
That's a good point. We have a submission that's about this that we'll put in a future episode about fuel and students checking the fuel. And how that can go wrong. So I will pull that story. I don't have it pulled for today, but I'll pull that for a future one.
All right. Well, enough about our stories. Let's go back to some submissions from listeners. All right. Buckle up. Here we go. So I didn't have to worry about getting my medical exam done while I was a new hire in class. I did it a month early in August. Well, fast forward again almost a year. My company started sending me automated messages that my medical was expiring for the purposes of unaugmented flight. When I read this message, I thought to myself, unaugmented? I don't care about augmented flight. That's wide body thing, and I fly a narrow body. So I disregarded the warnings altogether, not even thinking that my medical might be due by the end of August. I always get it done in September. Well, sure enough, on September 1st, I get a call from pilot scheduling saying that they tried assigning me a trip, but the system was showing me illegal due to an expired medical.
Oh my gosh.
I immediately froze up and said, okay, thanks, I'll take care of it. I ruffled around my briefcase to find my medical certificate, and sure enough, it expired at the end of August. How dumb of me to let this happen. One of the few things a pilot is responsible for maintaining current themselves on an airline is their medical. And I totally let it slip. Even worse, I'm still on probation for a few more months. So did I just screw myself out of a job for the rest of my career? Will this be the end of what I worked so hard to achieve? I could totally see a chief pilot shaking their head and questioning, if I can't remember to get my medical done, could I be trusted flying a jet? I decided to get ahead of the problem and disclose it to the chief. I called, fessed up, and explained why it happened. There were a few moments of silence, followed by him saying, well, you'll just have to pick up some flying later in the month to make up for your lost money. I was relieved.
That's nice.
That's all the punishment? Lost pay and a disappointed dad type talking to? Wow, this airline's quite different from the regional I just left. So the next step is easily scheduling a medical, right? Wrong. The following day is Labor Day. What AME, and AME, for those who are listening, is a aviation doctor, works on Labor Day. The iffy ones, it turns out.
They're all iffy.
I call my usual AME. They're booked out a month. So I log on to the FAA's AME finder, calling around, no one has availability. It's Labor Day weekend, so no one's answering or can fit me in. Finally, I got one that could schedule me. Let's call him Dr. Leroy to protect his namesake. He sounded older, but could get me in the next day and for a fair price. So I put his address into my GPS and got driving. About an hour to the middle of nowhere, through farm fields and small towns without stoplights. I'm looking for a doctor's office, but end up passing the address in my GPS. So I turned around and realized I was going to a house, a small ranch home with a big yard off a country road.
Red flag.
I pulled into the gravel driveway, and the front door opens. A thin, older man is there. He must be in his 90s. He welcomes me with a limp handshake and welcomes me in. His house smells like you'd expect it. A small ranch house where a 90-year-old lives. Musty, with brown matted carpet that hasn't been vacuumed in years.
Ew.
Very descriptive. Dr. Leroy opened a door and asked me to go downstairs, saying he'll be down in a moment. Now I was getting concerned. Is he not going down with me because he's going to lock me down there? What's going on? So I obliged and went down the stairs. When I got down there, the same musty smell was still present, but there were naval aviation pictures all over the wall. This man clearly had a passion for airplanes. I heard the entry door open. Dr. Leroy walked down. I mentioned his pictures, which is when he told me he used to be a naval flight surgeon. My heart sank as I realized there's a good chance that my typical easy medical appointment would be a thorough naval aviator medical exam. And boy, was it. He had me do an eye test I've never done before, even at the eye doctor. Cover one eye and stand on the opposite foot. Switch sides, squat down, stand up. Turn your head to the wall and point to which side I'm snapping my fingers. None of this is typical FAA medical procedures. But then he said the phrase, "Okay, turn towards me and drop your drawers." What? I yelled in my head.
I was about to say that too.
What the hell does my genitalia have to do with flying an airplane safely? There's no way this is part of the AME's guide to medical exams. But I can't say no to this because he's my only option for a medical. If I say no to this test, he'll probably will deny me medical. A denied medical is a pain to get reversed from what I heard because it involves an appeal to the main FAA medical board in Oak City. Probably a year wait to get a decision. So, dropping my pants is what I did. I had my genitals examined at a normal doctor before, and this exam wasn't anything beyond that, thankfully. But I've had my fair share of aviation medicals before, and never has this been a required exam. I never heard of anyone getting a thorough exam like this. Dr. Leroy did end up issuing my medical cert to me, and on the way out, asked if I'd give his information to my friends for their medical exams too. Apparently, business was slow. I wonder why.
Oh my gosh. You're going to have to fill me in a little since I'm not a dude on protocol / like how often do you really have to do those types of exams? Obviously, it's not part of your medical, right? Like you've never had that part of your medical.
Not in the aviation sense, but I have had to do this every single year when I played baseball.
It's for sports.
Yes. So they're looking for hernias.
Isn't that in your butt? Oh.
How specific do we want to be here?
I don't know anything.
This
is territory that I am not.
Unfortunately, I've been violated by doctors many, many times in my past because
Wait, hold on. I was thinking of hemorrhoids. Okay, continue. This is how unfamiliar I am with all this. Keep going.
I mean, I guess it makes sense from like an athletics perspective because you can get hernias, but like that's wild that, Dr. Leroy thinks that someone getting a first class medical should be getting a hemorrhoid check. Or I said it now, a hernia checked.
I'm curious what guidelines AMEs get. Like how creative can they get? I wonder... Maybe someone can write in and tell us if you guys know. I'm curious if they get a checklist of what must be done. However, do they get discretion to add to that list and do whatever they want, which I think would be kind of BS because we're talking about FAA medicals, and let's say they have some silly thing on their own creative list that you fail that's outside the scope of what the FAA is looking for. I'd be pretty pissed. So I wonder how much flexibility they have on what happens in these physicals.
So what do we think about AMEs in general?
Quacks.
That was too quick. I think your experiences with them are probably a lot different than mine, right?
I will say I've been to a lot of different AMEs because we've moved a lot. And one of the last ones I went to was very similar to this guy. It luckily was not in his house basement, or I would have ran for the hills.
But to be fair, they are always at a location that reminds you of you are going to be entrapped in some sort of
yes, the one I'm about to
assignment.
describe. I thought I was going to be kidnapped in this very strange, not so safe shopping plaza, and it was the tiniest little office, and you go in the back, and he did have me doing the stand on one foot, standing on the other foot, do a 360 to the right.
It's always the old guys.
He did the snapping the fingers thing, just like this person described, of like, close your eyes and where am I snapping my fingers, on your left or your right? Like, he did a lot of strange things that haven't been a part of my other ones.
No. I've been to doctors in a hangar, in a closet. Yes, it was literally like the size of a closet.
The one that I'm describing was very closet-esque as well.
The one we went to this year in Vegas, though, was at an actual office. It was the first time I feel like I've been to an actual office where it was like this guy was definitely just an AME too. There was one I remember in Atlanta that we went to. He was like a primary care physician that also did it, and he was a little weird. His nickname, I can't say that nickname because it gives away his name.
Oh, you're talking about a different one.
But it indicated the diddling part of the but we're not going to say his name.
There's a lot of really sketchy, creepy AMEs, and so if you're a chick and you're getting it, make sure that they have a female nurse in the room.
You learn that's required now, right?
Didn't know. Thank God. Thank God. I would not. Yeah, my experiences with AMEs, they're all a little strange.
I've never had big problems, but if you have a daughter or your wife flies, like, do some research. You know, nothing against doctors, but why is it always a thing? You guys listening know, like, you're going to feel the same way. Like, why are they always a little
I bet we just sparked almost every listener who's a pilot. Almost every single one could write in a story about going to the AME.
Send some in, you know? Send some in.
Oh my gosh, we should do a whole episode about AME experiences.
Yeah.
You guys should send those.
They're anonymous. Remember that. We're not throwing anyone under the bus. We're not putting any names out here.
Yeah. Don't put your doctor's name in it. Make up something like Dr. Leroy. But it can even be short, because if we get a bunch of them, we can just rattle off a bunch of funny experiences. That would be good. The other AME in Atlanta I liked. Remember, my relationship with him was quite strange.
Yes, I remember, because we went to Bali and you picked up dengue fever. I didn't know what dengue fever really was, but it's called breakbone fever. And it was around Halloween when we got back, and Mindy basically was covered in hives, like covered tip to toe. And she goes to the doctor, and the doctor.
Well, first of all, when he first diagnosed me, and this was also my AME, he was my AME and my primary physician in Atlanta. He was cheering, and I was dying. I won't go into the details of dengue fever. But
it's a mosquito bite.
It's from a mosquito, like similar to Zika or malaria, but it kills a lot of people. It's the most painful thing I've ever been through in my entire life. I've never even really talked about it very much. I kind of like hid it from almost everyone.
Yeah.
Because it was so painful. It was in a bad place.
Too.
I have pictures.
Anyways, the doctor
he was cheering when I went in the first time, nearly on my deathbed, because he was so excited, because he was in rural Georgia, and he's like, I never thought I would get to diagnose dengue fever. And he's like, can you go on another trip and come back with malaria? Because I want to diagnose that too. And I was like, you gotta be shitting me. But yes, then I had the end of dengue fever, after you go through literal hell of break bone fever, it's called, because it feels like your bones are broken. You cannot walk, you're bedridden, and even to lay down hurts. The end of it, as a nice little sign off of you surviving this awful disease, is a head to toe rash, like big welts from on my face, neck, shoulders, the whole way down to my feet. And now you can tell the funniest part of this, and we're going to get out of here.
Pretty much the doctor said, Mindy, you don't have to get a Halloween costume now.
Isn't that bullshit? That's what my doctor said to me. I went in like crying, unable to do anything. Like, how can I fix this? Like, what is this? And he said, well, the good news is you don't have to go shopping for a Halloween costume. I was like, you mother trucker. But anyway, that's all we have for you guys this week. Hope you enjoyed the episode, because I know we enjoy it. And we got a great one for you next week. So be sure that you subscribe. That way you don't miss the next episode.
Talk to you guys in a week. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for flying with Captain John Doe. If you have a story to share, visit CaptainJohnDoe.com and stay anonymous. New episodes every Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and tell your favorite crew members.